Hi everyone, welcome to another video in my music theory series. Last week we went through the basics of music theory, and in this video we're going to oversimplify chords. A chord is nothing more than single notes played together, as opposed to a melody where we play the notes sequentially, one after the other. The intervals within a chord are what defines the type of chord. And we have minor and major intervals, so we have minor and major chords. Before we move on with the video, I want to send a special thank you to all my subscribers. This week we've reached 110 subscribers. And maybe it doesn't sound much, but it's definitely keeping me motivated to post more content and improve the quality of the videos. Put your right thumb on one of the white keys. It doesn't matter which one. Now skip a key and put another finger on the third key. Skip another key and put the third finger on the fifth key. You should not be pressing all three keys together with an empty key between each finger. If you play three notes at the same time, you are playing a chord. It's as simple as that. Basic chords consist of just three notes arranged in thirds. This is what we call a triad. The most common triads are constructed from notes within a scale, each note two steps above the previous one. For example, if you want to base a chord on the tonic of the scale, you would use the first, the third, and the fifth notes. If you want to base a chord on the second degree of the scale, use the second, the fourth, and the sixth. Within a specific chord, the first note is called the root. The other notes of the chord are named relative to the first note, and it's usually a third and a fifth above the root. For example, if C is the chord's root, E is called the third and G is called the fifth of the chord. Putting your fingers on every other white note, let's form a chord starting on middle C. So your finger should be on C, E, and G. It's a pretty nice sounding chord. Now, let's move our fingers one key to the right. So we're starting on D. Your finger should be on D, F, A. Let's play them together and see what the difference is. It's pretty noticeable that the chords sound different. The second chord is kind of sad compared to the happier chord that we played first. Now we just demonstrated the difference between major and minor chords. The first chord you played was a major chord, a C major chord. The second chord was a minor chord, D minor. As with major and minor scales, the major and minor chords sound different to the listener, and this is because the intervals within the chords are slightly different. The type of chord is determined by the middle note, the third. When the interval between the first note and the second note is a major third, that means two whole steps, you have a major chord. When the interval between the first note and the second note is a minor third, that means three half steps, you have a minor chord. It's no more complex than that. If you change the middle note, you actually change the chord from major to minor. I think it's about time we revisit major and minor intervals just as a refresher. When you describe the intervals by degree, you have to deal with those pitches that fall above or below the basic notes. Those are called sharps and flats, and they are the black keys on a keyboard. When measuring by degrees, you can see that the second, third, sixth and seventh degrees can easily be flattened. Remember, when we flatten an interval, we create what is called a minor interval. In a major key, the natural state of these intervals are called major intervals. A major chord consists of a root, a major third, and a perfect fifth. For example, in the key of C, the C major chord includes the notes C, E, and G. The E is a major third above the C, and the G is a perfect fifth above the C. Try to build the major chords on every note of the C major scale. So you start with the C, continue with D, E. This is a really good practice to get used to building chords. The main difference between a major and a minor chord is the third. Although a major chord utilizes a major third, a minor chord flattens that interval to create a minor third. The fifth stays in the same position. In other words, a minor chord consists of a root, a minor third, and a perfect fifth. This is sometimes notated 1, 3, 5. For example, the C minor chord includes the notes C, E flat, and G. The C major chord includes C, E natural, and G. You can even hear the difference between the two. A diminished chord is like a minor chord with a lower fifth. These chords are not used so often because the way they sound is not too pleasing. But just to give you an idea, you build a diminished chord with the root note, the minor third, and a diminished fifth. So basically, we lower the fifth by half a step. For example, the C diminished chord includes the notes C, E flat, G flat. If you want a really simple chord with a lot of power, you can just play the root and the fifth. This is what we call a power chord. One bad thing about the power chords is that if you use them consecutively and often enough, you create something called parallel fifths. This is not something that you want in your songs. So you can use power chords, but don't overdo it and do not use them consecutively. The harmonic structure of a piece of music is defined by a series of chords. Chords lead to other chords, and some of these chords have specific functions in the song. So you have to arrange the chords in the right order to create a piece of music that is both logical and natural sounding. To better understand the theory behind chord progressions, you need to understand that you can create a 3-note chord based on any of the 7 notes in a scale. You start with the note of the scale 1 through 7 as your root note, and then you start building from there in thirds. We use the position within a scale to describe individual chords in our chords progression. We use Roman numerals 1 through 7 to describe where each chord falls within the scale. Uppercase Roman numerals are used for the major chords. Lowercase numerals are used for minor chords. For diminished chords, we use lowercase Roman numerals plus a small circle. So within a major scale, the 7 chords are noted as follows. You can notice that the only major chords in a major scale are the first, the fourth, and the fifth. Those are also called primary chords. Let's see how we can use these Roman numerals to create a chord progression. Let's take chords in the key of G major. Let's take G, C, and D major. These chords fall on the first, the fourth, and the fifth. So they are all major chords in a major scale. Because you know that the G is first, C is fourth, and D is fifth in our G major scale, it's easy to figure out the Roman numeral notation. This makes the chord progression 1, 4, 5. So let's make it a little bit interesting. Let's go 1, 4, 1, and 5. Let's say that you want to play this 1, 4, 1, 5 progression in the key of C. So this will become 1, 4, 1, and 5. So this will become C major, F major, C major, G major. This definitely makes things simpler when we want to transpose our chord progression in a different key. The goal of most major chord progressions is to get back to the first or to the tonic. All other chords within the progression are like a roadmap to deliver you back to the first chord. This route can be simple if you're using just a couple of chords, or it can get quite complex if you start using inversions and a lot of chords. But you need to understand that ultimately your goal is to end up on the first or on the tonic. Next, we're talking about my favorite topic, chords leading. Chords progressions are based on one simple rule. Certain chords lead to other chords. To keep it simple, we'll stay in the key of C, so you don't have to play any of the black keys. So let's start playing a C major chord. This is the first chord, which doesn't necessarily lead anywhere because based on chord leading rules, the first chord can be followed by any chord in the scale. Now let's play a G major chord, which is G, B, and D. This is the fifth chord of the scale and it definitely wants to go somewhere. Now we could follow this with a F major chord, but it's not that satisfying. So let's try maybe a D minor chord or a E minor chord, or even A minor chord. So it's not really satisfying. The only chord that sounds fully satisfying is the first chord, which is C major. There are many different variations of this progression, so you can play with the blocks and see whatever sounds interesting for you. So you can do a 1, 5, 4, 5, 1. See the chords as building blocks and play with them. See whatever sounds interesting for your songs. The rule here is that the fifth chord naturally leads back to the first. Although you can add another chord after the fifth, the best resolution most of the times is to follow the fifth with a first. Other chords have related chords that they naturally lead to, and some chords often lead to more than just one other chord. In order to learn what chords lead to other chords, I will create a PDF and I will link it in the description of this video.